This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
It's Thankful Thursday, a pause in the chaos to notice what still holds up, keeps us going, or surprised us this week in the best way. Gratitude lives here.
A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it.
There we go. Let's get unmuted. Sorry, I got my Beyonce going and I can't get my remote to work. Don't that just figure on this kind of day? I am thankful for my Beyonce. Let me tell you that. I am so thankful. Now, could you work for me, please? There it went. Okay. Now I won't get blown away. So listen, y'all, there is a kind of gratitude that doesn't clap. Okay. It doesn't announce itself and it just stays. When I think about thankfulness today, I think about Luther Vandross, not because his life was easy, but because his voice never hardened. He stayed tender in a world that rewards armor, and he stayed careful with emotion when rushing would have been louder. This isn't gratitude for what worked out. It's gratitude for what stayed gentle and didn't disappear. So thankfulness doesn't always arrive as celebration. Sometimes it shows up as softness that survived. This episode reflects on gratitude, endurance, and what Luther Vandross reminds us about being human and staying that way. So welcome back to Ask a Bee. If you're here today, this isn't a space that asks you to arrive cheerful, resolved, or optimistic, because Thankful Thursday doesn't require a good mood or a finished story. It just asks that we show up honestly wherever we are, even if that place feels tired or complicated or unresolved. Gratitude is one of those words that's been polished so much it's lost some of its truth, because we're taught to associate it with outcomes and wins and things working out of the way that we hope they would. But real gratitude is often quieter than any of that. Sometimes it doesn't arrive as relief at all. Sometimes it arrives as recognition, the slow noticing of what didn't disappear, even when things felt heavy and stalled and very uncertain or slower than we expected. Today, I'm not interested in gratitude as performance. I'm not interested in lists or declarations or pretending that appreciation has to look upbeat. I'm interested in gratitude as honesty, the kind that can sit alongside frustration and fatigue without canceling it out. The kind that allows disappointment and thankfulness to exist in the same breath without demanding that one erase the other. That's rough. That matters because a lot of people carrying guilt around gratitude, like, if they admit that they're thankful, then they're not allowed to feel worn down or angry or discouraged or disappointed anymore, as if gratitude is some kind of contract that requires emotional compliance. But gratitude isn't a contract, okay? It isn't a trade. It doesn't erase the rest of your experience. It just gives you another lens to look through, another way of seeing what's still intact, even when things don't feel finished or even fair. Happy Thursday, Niecy plus sister. Hi, honey. Love you. I'm so happy to see you. We're talking about Luther. I just knew you'd be here. Okay, so that's today's conversation. It's shaped around Luther Vandross, not as a biography, not as a ranking, not as nostalgia, but as an example, because when I think about Luther, I don't think about spectacle or excess or even volume. I think about restraint and patience. I really think about the voice that never needed to shout to be heard, a voice that, it trusted timing instead of urgency, a voice that stayed careful with emotion in a world that, it often rewards armor, speed, and hardness. And that can be difficult to navigate, don't you think? So there's something quietly instructive about that, especially now, because many of us are living in seasons where staying soft feels risky, where it feels like hardening would be safer, where pulling back, numbing out, or disappearing would require less emotional energy than staying present and open. Gratitude in those moments, it doesn't look like celebrating or even enthusiasm. It looks like endurance to me. It looks like choosing not to abandon yourself, even when you're tempted to, even when the reward for staying isn't obvious yet. We don't talk enough about the kind of strength that it takes to do all this, because we tend to celebrate resilience when it's loud, when it comes with a comeback story or a visible victory or a clear turning point. But you know what? Quiet resilience rarely gets credit. In fact, I don't think it ever does. The kind that doesn't announce itself, right? The kind that keeps showing up without applause, without certainty, definitely without guarantees that things will resolve neatly. And that's not how it works. So, Thankful Thursday, at least in this space, isn't about being thankful for struggle itself. It's about being thankful for what survived it, for the parts of you that didn't calcify, for the parts of you that stayed tender and curious or capable of care, even when the environment around you made that difficult. I want to say this clearly because it matters, okay? Gratitude does not require closure. You don't have to know how the story ends in order to be thankful for what's still intact inside of it. You don't have to have a lesson yet, okay? You don't have to be able to explain why something is happening or where it's going. Sometimes the most honest thing that you can say is that you're still here and still capable of caring, still capable of feeling, and come on, still capable of listening. And that counts even if nothing else is resolved. So this show never has been about rushing people towards answers or simplifying things for comfort. It's about letting ideas and stories breathe long enough to be felt. It's about trusting that the listener is intelligent, emotionally literate, and capable of sitting with the complexity without needing everything summarized or wrapped up neatly. So today, we're not chasing breakthroughs. We're not manufacturing optimism, and we're definitely not forcing gratitude to look brighter than it actually feels. We're just paying attention to what stayed gentle, paying attention to what endured without hardening, and to the quiet courage it takes to remain soft in a hard world. And if that's all we do today, if we simply notice that and let it sit without rushing past it, then that is enough. And that's where we're going to start. So I do have a letter to read today. And I do have a video for that because my voice has been screaming at me for 2 days. But don't worry, it's not all video. I'm still here. Okay, so before we move into this letter, I just want to take a little time to explain what Ask a Bee actually is, because I'm sure we have some newcomers, especially for anyone out there who's, this is for you if this is your first time, because the show doesn't work the way a lot of advice shows do. And this is not professional advice. This is just my opinion on YouTube, okay? Ask a Bee is not about quick fixes, hot takes, or telling people what they should do with their lives. And it's not a space where stories are rushed towards a lesson just so we can feel productive. People write in because they're carrying something that hasn't sorted itself out yet. And this show, it exists to give those stories room to breathe, without being judged or simplified or turned into content. When a letter is shared here, it's not because the writer expects a perfect answer. It's because they need to be heard honestly, without pressure to perform. clarity or gratitude or growth on demand. My role isn't to solve anyone or to hand down conclusion, okay? It's to listen carefully, reflect what I'm hearing, and sit with the complexity long enough for it to be respected. That's especially important on Thankful Thursday, too, because gratitude here isn't about pretending things are okay or putting a positive spin on pain. It's about acknowledging what's real and noticing what's still intact inside that reality. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can offer another person isn't advice, it's attention and patience and the willingness to stay with their story without rushing them towards an ending. This show trusts that people are emotionally capable and able to hold nuance without everything being summarized for them. And it trusts that not every moment needs to resolve neatly to be worthwhile. So as we move into this letter, understand it's not being shared to be fixed or judged. It's being shared because there is value in telling the truth out loud and having it witnessed with care. Later in the show, we may return to these ideas and reaffirm them. But right now, this is the foundation we're standing on. Respect for the writer, respect for the story, and respect for the fact that some conversations matter precisely because they don't hurry themselves towards closure. This is pretty important. Okay, here's the letter.
I don't really know how to explain this without sounding a little undone, so I'm not going to try to tidy it up. I am thankful for Luther Vandross, and I mean that in the most honest, full-bodied way possible. His voice has been with me through more seasons of my life than I can count, and it has never once failed me. That voice didn't just sing, it settled people. It wrapped itself around feelings most of us didn't have words for yet and made them safe to feel. There is something about the smoothness of his tone, the care in his phrasing, the way he never rushed a lyric, that makes you feel like love itself slowed down just to sit beside you for a while. I'm thankful for the way his music taught me that tenderness is not weakness, that romance doesn't have to shout, and that intimacy can be built one carefully chosen word at a time. What people don't always talk about, and what I'm deeply thankful for, is how much Luther gave without demanding the spotlight. Before so many people knew his name, he was shaping the sound of other legends, arranging, writing, and lending his voice behind the scenes with a kind of humility that feels almost holy now. He helped build albums that changed music history, not because he needed credit, but because excellence mattered to him. He won awards, yes, but he also won something rarer, respect that crossed genres, generations, and egos. He stayed disciplined in an industry that rewards excess. He stayed elegant when flash would have been easier. And he stayed committed to craft in a world that often rushes past it. So today, I'm thankful not just for the songs, but for the man he was through them. Thankful that he never cheapened emotion, never mocked love, never turned softness into something to be embarrassed about. Thankful that when his voice comes on, the room changes, my shoulders drop, and something in me remembers how to be gentle again. If there are musical saints, Luther Vandross is one of them, because his legacy isn't just in records sold or awards won, it's in how many people learned how to feel safely because he existed. That's what I'm thankful for, always.
Somebody needs to tell that person that's doing the AI voice that it's Vandross, please. I didn't even realize that. I'm sorry for the mispronunciation there. Hello, Lucy doll. How are you? Good to see you, hon. Okay, I'm gonna answer this letter on before we go into the story about Luther, because we are going to talk about Luther. You know, I love me some Vandross. Vandross. Hey, I get it right. So I love how you didn't apologize for how deeply you feel about Luther Vandross, because I'm not going to. Okay, I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not going to. Luther, yummy. Okay, voice, talent. He's a male diva, I think. He's trifecta. I mean, it's like so many awesome things going on there, right? So, because, you know, that right there tells me something important about the writer of this letter. You understand that reverence doesn't need to be ironic to be intelligent, and Hey, love doesn't need to be diluted to be respectable. What you're describing isn't celebrity worship, I don't think. That's not just my opinion. It's recognition, and there's a difference, a huge difference. You're responding to the way his voice made space for people to feel without being rushed or judged or hardened. And that matters more than charts or headlines ever could. And you better believe Mr. Vandross, he knows that. Luther didn't just sing love, he's protected it. He treats emotion like something sacred, something worth handling carefully. And in a culture that often rewards loudness and conquest, that kind of restraint is rare and powerful. I hear in your gratitude, not just admiration for his smoothness or his lyrics, but appreciation for the discipline it takes to stay gentle over a lifetime, to keep choosing elegance when spectacle would have been easier, maybe even more profitable, but to keep honoring intimacy instead of exploiting it. And you know what? You are right. You are so right. So much of what made him extraordinary happened quietly, way behind the scenes, in the way he elevated other artists, shaped records that defined eras, and he upheld a standard of elegance without needing to dominate the room. That kind of legacy, it doesn't scream, it endures. What I also hear is how his music gave you permission. It did. Permission to slow down, to soften, to believe that tenderness isn't naive. It's not. And romance isn't weak. That you don't have to armor up to survive the world. That's not small. That's formative. And I think that why calling him a musical saint is personally perfect. Okay. Just put that out there. And it doesn't feel exaggerated here because saints aren't defined by perfection. They're defined by what they protect. And Luther, he protected feeling itself. So your thankfulness makes sense to me. It's not about nostalgia. It's about recognizing a life, a voice that helped you and so many others remain human in a world that often asks us to trade that away. There's nothing excessive about honoring that. There's something deeply grounded about it. And I am so glad that you did not hide that. It's pretty amazing. Okay. That's great. Don't ever hide those feelings. It's not being starstruck, you know? It's definitely not being starstruck. It's a feeling in the lyrics as well. It's there. Okay, we're going to do the story just a little bit different, not too much. I'm going to stay on stage. I'm working with scenes in StreamYard, so I'm hoping this works. If it doesn't, I'll fix it. Watch me go. All right, here we go. And there it is. Yay! So when people talk about why they're thankful for Luther Vandross, they often start with the voice they fell in love with later, the polished, unmistakable sound that, it could slow a room down in seconds. I need this better. I like that better. Okay. But gratitude for Luther doesn't really begin there. It begins much earlier in the years before the spotlight ever found him. When his gift was still being shaped quietly, deliberately, and without applause, those early years matter because they explain why his music feels so safe to return to, why it feels considered instead of consumed, and why his voice still carries a kind of trust that doesn't fade with time. Luther grew up in New York, raised by a single mother who valued discipline, structure, and effort. Music wasn't treated as fantasy or escape in his household. It was treated as work, as something that required commitment and seriousness. That environment, It shaped him deeply. He didn't grow up believing that talent alone would carry him. He grew up understanding that preparation mattered, that excellence was something you practiced when no one was watching. And that mindset would become one of the quiet foundations of his entire career. From early on, Luther was a listener before he was a performer. He paid attention to how voices interacted, how harmonies were built. I'm looking at too many things at once. Forgive me. How phrasing could change the emotional temperature of a song. Hi, Lucy. Good to see you. So he wasn't interested in overpowering music. Okay. He wanted to understand it from the inside. That instinct to blend, to support, to elevate would later become one of the most distinctive qualities of his work. Even as a young man, there was a sense that he wasn't chasing dominance, he was chasing depth. He studied music formally, learning theory, structure, and composition. He trained his ear and his voice with patience, absorbing the lineage of soul, R&B, and gospel singers who came before him. And one of the reasons people are thankful for Luther is that he respected that lineage. He didn't parody it, okay? He didn't rush past it. He treated it like the tradition of emotional singing as something sacred, something to be honored rather than reinvented for attention. In his early professional years, Luther wasn't positioned as a star. He was positioned more as a contributor. He sang background vocals. He arranged. He wrote. He lent his voice to projects that would go on to become totally iconic without his name ever being front and center. He sang jingles. He worked in studios where excellence was expected and anonymity was common. And instead of resisting that role, he mastered it. Pardon me. Got to stay hydrated. Forgive me. So there is something profoundly instructive, I think is a good word, about that season of his life. Luther learned how to serve a song without trying to steal it. He learned how to enhance a record without overpowering it. And he definitely learned how to listen to other artists and shape sound around their voices instead of competing with them. That kind of musical humility, it's rare. And it's one of the reasons his later works feel so generous. He never sang at people. He sang with them. Even when he was the only voice in the room. People are thankful for Luther because he didn't skip the invisible work. He didn't treat background roles as temporary or beneath him. He treated them as classrooms. He treated every opportunity to sing as an opportunity to refine his craft. That discipline shows up later in the precision of his phrasing, in the way his songs feel intentional rather than indulgent, and definitely in the way emotion is handled carefully instead of exploited. And we know there's a lot of artists out there that they like to exploit it. And, I don't have a favorite genre, but we know rock has that issue. Okay. I'm eclectic, so that's why we're doing Luther today, if you don't know. So another reason gratitude for Luther begins early is because of how he understood emotional responsibilities, even before fame. He didn't approach love songs casually. He didn't treat romance as conquest or drama for drama's sake. He studied how emotion had been expressed by singers who came before him, and he understood that certainty was risky. In a culture that often rewards irony, restraint can feel vulnerable. And yet, Luther chose sincerity anyway. In those formative years, he learned how to let a note breathe. He learned how to trust silence. He learned that not every feeling needs to be rushed or resolved. Those choices didn't happen by accident either. They were the result of years spent listening, practicing, and refining his relationship with emotion itself. And that's something listeners feel when they say they're thankful for him. Not just the sound of his voice, but the care behind it. There is also a gratitude in the way Luther handled patience. His recognition did not come quickly. His voice was heard by millions before his name was known by them. He contributed to landmark projects, helped shape records that defined eras, and yet remained largely invisible to the public for a long time. That kind of delayed recognition can harden an artist. It can breed resentment or urgency. But Luther, it bred precision and readiness. He wasn't waiting to be discovered so he could prove something. He was preparing so that when the moment arrived, he would be capable of carrying it. That's a form of gratitude in itself. Gratitude for the work and for the process, for the idea that excellence matters, even when it isn't rewarded immediately. People feel integrity when they listen to him later. They sense that the voice they're hearing is the result of time, not hype. Before the awards, before the sold out shows, even before the world labeled him iconic, Luther Vandross was building a relationship with music based on respect. Respect for the listener, for who deserved to be met with sincerity rather than spectacle. Respect for the song, which deserved to be served rather than used. And respect for emotion itself, which deserved to be handled gently. That foundation explains why Luther's music was longevity without feeling hated or dated, pardon me. It explains why people don't just remember his songs. They return to him. His work feels like a place you can rest, not a moment where you have to chase. And that's not accidental, not by any means. That's the result of years spent choosing patience over urgency, depth over display, and care over ego. So when gratitude for Luther Vandross begins, it begins here, in the quiet rooms, the background harmonies, the unseen labor, and the disciplined years where excellence was practiced without applause. It begins with a young man who took music seriously enough to treat it gently, who understood that emotion is something you protect, not perform. Everything that comes later, the acclaim, the devotion, the sense of reverence people still feel, grows out of this beginning. And that's why people are thankful for him long before the world learned how to say his name. Okay, so can we do that, please? I'm sorry, 1 second. Not having a good one. Hello, can you do what I need you to do? Yep, sorry. 1 more second. I have no clue why this is not working. Oh, I see why it's not working. Pardon me, because I'm an idiot. No, I'm not really. I'm just saying that. So listen, when gratitude for Luther Vandross deepens, and it often does, in the moment when the world finally caught up to what we had been quietly preparing for all along, because recognition arrived. Something remarkable happened. He didn't harden, he didn't rush, and he didn't trade restraint for spectacle. By the time Luther stepped fully into the spotlight as a solo artist, he wasn't discovering who he was revealing who he had already become. And that distinction matters because so many artists arrive at success still forming themselves, still scrambling to keep up with attention. But Luther, he arrived with a fully formed relationship to his craft. His breakthrough, it wasn't loud in the way people often expect breakthroughs to be. It was confident, measured, and unmistakably his. And that's why listeners trusted him almost immediately because the voice they heard didn't sound hungry for approval. It sounded assured, grounded, and emotionally fluent. When his albums began to reach wider audiences and his songs started becoming part of people's lives in intimate ways, there was a sense that he wasn't trying to win anyone over. He was inviting them in. And that invitation carried weight because it was backed by years of discipline and patience and respect for emotion. One of the reasons people are so thankful for Luther during this period is that he resisted the pressure to become louder, edgier, more performative, just because the spotlight was demanding it. Instead, he doubled down on precision and phrasing and emotional clarity, trusting that there was still an audience for tenderness, even as the industry chased bigger, faster, and flashier sounds. His success, it didn't come from chasing trends. It came from honoring a standard. And when awards followed, they felt like recognition rather than validation. Because he had never built his identity around being seen, only around being true to the work. There is gratitude in how he handled the claim because he didn't use it as permission to abandon the values that shaped him. He used it as an opportunity to protect them, to show that romance could still be reverent, that love songs could still be sincere, and that emotional depth didn't need to be disguised as irony to be respected. So during these years, Luther became a kind of emotional constant for people navigating relationships, heartbreak, devotion, and longing. Not because he offered answers, but because he offered language. And that's a rare gift. The ability to articulate feelings without overpowering them, to give voice to vulnerability without turning it into spectacle. His music during this time didn't rush people through. It stayed with them. And that staying power is why gratitude for him often feels personal, like he was present during moments when listeners needed permission to feel fully without apology. I think that's great. You know, I know all of us out here, we've got songs, certain songs that just hit that right place, you know, just the right place. And for me, Luther has hit that for me. He has. He really has. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out why my stuff is. Okay. It's kind of crazy over here for a minute. So, another reason I think thankfulness intensifies here is because Luther's excellence, it was never isolated to himself. He continued to uplift others, collaborate thoughtfully, and maintain a standard of professionalism that earned him deep respect across genres and generations. And that respect wasn't built on fear or dominance. It was built on consistency, preparation, and trust. People knew that when Luther stepped into a room, the work would be done properly, the emotion would be handled carefully, and the music would be treated with dignity. And that kind of reliability creates a legacy that goes way beyond charts. Even as his visibility increased, he remained deeply invested in craft, in rehearsal, in getting things right rather than getting them fast. And there is a gratitude in that refusal to cut corners because it reassured listeners that what they were hearing was intentional, not manufactured. His voice during these years became synonymous with safety, not comfort in the shallow sense, but emotional safety. The feeling that you could sit with a song and not be rushed out of it, that you could feel deeply without being mocked or minimized. And that safety is something people carry with them long after the song ends. What makes this phase of his career especially meaningful, I think, is that success didn't dilute his humanity, it clarified it. Instead of becoming distant or untouchable, his work became more precise and more considered and way more generous, as if he understood that with visibility came responsibility too. Responsibility to the listener, to the emotion, and definitely to the tradition he represented. Gratitude grows here because Luther showed that you could succeed without becoming hardened, that you could be celebrated without becoming careless, and that you could definitely be adored without exploiting that devotion. In a world that often equates success with excess, he modeled a different equation, one where excellence, patience, and emotional integrity were enough. And that example matters because it gives people permission to believe that staying true doesn't have to mean staying small. So by the time Luther was fully recognized, his music had already proven itself not as a trend, but as a companion, something people return to during quiet moments, difficult conversations, and private reflections. And that kind of relationship can't be manufactured. It can only be earned over time. So when people say they're thankful for Luther Vandross, especially during these breakthrough years, what they're really expressing, I believe, is gratitude for an artist who met success without losing softness, who accepted recognition without abandoning any restraint, and who definitely showed up by example. The greatness doesn't require you to betray the very qualities that made your work meaningful in the first place. I think that's really important, you know? So another reason I think gratitude for Luther, begins early is because of how he understood emotional responsibility even before fame. He didn't approach love songs casually, okay? He didn't treat romance as conquest or drama or any of that. He just did what he had to do. And I think we're all better for it, right? Yeah. All right, y'all, I'm going to have to give my voice a break. And you know what? That's okay because there's a really cool song I'm about to play for you. Y'all listen to these words. This is me.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson, every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of Boss B. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. A Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns the power unseen. So let further spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss B doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss be rising, BBTV shining, her story's rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling when she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss be rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV, this is her grace.
Join Boss B for Ask a Bee Monday through Friday, 12 noon Central Standard Time and Jukebox Journey every Saturday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Hold on, I want to take a second to shout out Tuber Chat, because once again they showed up and held space the way real community does. This channel isn't about noise or numbers chasing, it's about consistency, respect, and actually supporting creators without strings attached. That matters more than people realize. If you're looking for a place that lifts voices instead of talking over them, Tuber Chat is that lane. I appreciate the time, the encouragement, and the steady presence more than I can properly wrap into words. So much love to the Tuber Chat crew for doing what you do and doing it the right way.
Tuber Chat, AI, get it straight. Jeez. Tuber Chat is amazing. Y'all need to get over there. Link will be in the description. As always, get there. I'm telling you, it's amazing. Okay, so let's see here. We're going to try this again. Going into segment 2. I'm going to put myself up here. Watch this mess me up. I just know it will. Oh my gosh, it did it right for once. Alrighty, well, we're just going to let it play. So there is a particular kind of gratitude that only shows up after someone is gone, not because their absence makes us romanticize them, right? But because time gives us clarity. And that's especially true when people talk about why they're still thankful for Luther Vandross all these years later, right? Because that becomes clear with distance. Distance is just how rare his presence actually was. I mean, I grew up knowing him, right? Knowing his songs, his lyrics, and not many people talk about him. And that's sad. That is so sad. But Luther, his music felt like something you could lean on in real time. Something that accompanied relationships as they unfolded, heartbreaks as they happened, and moments of intimacy as they were being lived. But after his passing, and yes, y'all know what I'm talking about here, okay? The realization that his voice didn't age, didn't fade, and didn't lose relevance as culture shifted around it. In fact, it became more obvious how carefully constructed it all was, how intentionally he treated emotion, and how much protection he built around tenderness at a time when the world was already beginning to move faster and harder. Gratitude deepens here because people start to recognize that Luther didn't just give us songs for specific moments. He gave us a way of relating to feeling itself and a way of slowing down long enough to honor love, longing, devotion, and even loss without turning any of it into spectacle. There is something profoundly comforting about returning to his music after years have passed and realizing that it still meets you where you are, not where you were, that it doesn't demand nostalgia or youth or a particular version of yourself to be understood. In fact, I think as we grow, we understand more, right? This simply asks you to listen. And that's rare because as so much music is tied to a moment, a trend, or an era. But Luther's work exists outside of that. Not because it ignored its time, but because it was rooted in human truth rather than cultural urgency. People are thankful for him now because they see how much he gave without asking to be explained or defended or refrained. How he trusted that sincerity would carry him and carry its own weight long after charts and headlines stopped mattering. With time, listeners also came to understand how much emotional labor Luther took on quietly, how he held space for vulnerability, and without turning it into performance, how he allowed people to feel deeply without feeling exposed. And that kind of care is something we don't encounter often enough. In fact, at all, in most cases, right? His music didn't push people towards closure. It allowed them to stay in process, to sit with feelings that didn't resolve neatly. And that becomes even more meaningful as life gets more complicated rather than less. Gratitude grows because people realize that Luther didn't just soundtrack romance. He modeled emotional responsibility. Let me say that again, okay? He modeled emotional responsibility. He showed what it looks like to handle love gently, to honor longing without desperation, and to express devotion without ownership. And those lessons don't expire. As years pass, his absence also highlights how few artists have truly stepped into that space. Not many, if at all. How rare is it to find voices that prioritize care over conquest, patience over pressure, and how about sincerity over irony? That absence makes his presence feel even more significant in retrospect. People become thankful not only for what he gave, but for what he persevered, a standard of emotional integrity that still feels intact every time his voice fills a room. There is gratitude in knowing that when life feels loud or rushed or unkind, there is still a place that you can go where emotion is handled carefully, where love is treated with respect, and where softness is never mocked. And that place exists largely because Luther Vandross existed. How many of us go and turn on a song just because we need it, right? Over time, listeners also recognize that his legacy isn't static. It continues to teach, to reassure, and to remind people that feeling deeply is not a liability. It's a form of intelligence. And that reminder, it becomes more valuable as the world grows more performative. Gratitude here isn't rooted in loss. It's rooted in continuity, in the realization that although he is no longer physically present, his work continues to do what it always did: steady people, soften a room, and give language to feelings that resist simplification, right? Maybe that's why people speak about him with such reverence now, because saints, musical or otherwise, are remembered not for perfection, but for what they protected. And Luther, he protected the right to feel without armor, and the right to love without apology, and most definitely the right to move through life with tenderness intact. That kind of legacy doesn't fade, it deepens. And gratitude for it shows not because time passes, but because time proves just how necessary it was. So I think we've covered a lot today. Mostly, I just want to say this. Luther Vandross for me has been one of those absolute go-to people. Let me do this. That has just, you know what, given me every sense of the word when I needed it, whichever word it was. And I think that's important with artists because I want to say this. Okay. I have said before, I have a music background, right? The reason I'm not out there doing music right now is because of my confidence level. Okay. Luther would give me a song I could sit and just listen to, or even sing if I wanted to. And yes, I know he has a low voice, but I love to harmonize. I went an octave higher. He gave me, in those moments when I was going to, like in school, when I was going to audition for a solo, right? I could warm up to his music, harmonizing with him. And the feelings in every little bit of the lyrics would just draw me into the point where I think I sang the best I ever sang before when I would sing with Luther Vandross, because he's so easy to harmonize with, and his voice is so smooth and just makes you want to wrap yourself around it, you know? And that is a musician. To me, if you, I'm going to quote a movie here and y'all can get off on that or not, but I think when you wake up in the morning and all you think about is music, you are a musician. Plain and simple. It doesn't even matter if you can't sing or have an instrument. The fact that you think of music that much makes you a musician, because somewhere in your mind, you're still singing the song you just heard. Songs get stuck in our head, right? That's how it happens. So for me, the people that I bring up here on stage, the artist, it's because at some point in my life, this artist had an impact on me. And when I get to go in and research them and decide to write what I'm going to write for it, I learn all these really cool things that makes me understand things about my past that I didn't think about then. When it takes us back with the nostalgia, which is not what it's about, but it's still there. When you stop and you think about things that were happening the first time you heard that song, the first time it just stuck with you, you go back and you think, okay, that explains a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with reminiscing with the past, even if it's bad. Be thankful for your past. It has built you to this point. Tomorrow is my past, and it built me for today. And that's literal, not cliche, or I'm not trying to make a point other than the fact that 5 minutes ago was the past. You can't go back. Go forward. And Luther Vandross, that is exactly what I think he always was trying to do. Hi, Tracy doll. Hello, honey. Good to see you. Mwah. Your videos are getting so good, girl. I am so proud of you. Anybody and everybody, if you see this lady anywhere on your stream, you best treat her with some respect and give her major love. This woman is amazing. Okay. Let me just say that. I'm doing pretty good, Tracy doll. I'm doing pretty good. Got my voice good and back. Almost through with this episode, but you know what? I'm not rushing. How are you doing, sweetheart? That's what I'd like to know. Are your hands sore yet from that big old garden you got? That is so beautiful. I watch your videos. I like them. I may not comment on them, but you always got a thumbs up from me, honey, because you're always there when I need you. Mwah. Please get over there and see Tracy's Local Learnings, guys. Everybody, you're going to love all her medicinal videos. I've watched, I think, the one about the dandelions only because these things are as big as my hands. Okay. I want to live in your backyard, Tracy. It'd be great. We could be real sisters then. But seriously, guys, you guys got to get over there because she's got so much going on that is absolutely helpful to man, you know what? I've been feeling a lot better, and I've been drinking me some, yes, you're getting there, baby girl. Yes, I know. We need to get you to 4,000, don't we? I'm telling you guys, get over there, watch those videos. They are binge worthy. Do it. You know you want to. And I'm going to tell you this, Tracy, this is going out on Facebook. It's going out on YouTube, and it's going out on Twitter. So if something happens, there you go. Maybe, just maybe I can pay you back just a little bit for all the support you've given me. You know I'm going to forever try. I love you, honey. All right. So as I close out today, I don't want to rush us out of this space or pretend that everything we touched neatly resolves itself, because it doesn't have to. Thankful Thursday isn't about arriving at answers. It's about noticing what stayed intact while we were living our lives. The softness we protected, the care we didn't abandon, the feelings we allowed ourselves to feel without apology. When I think about why people remain thankful for Luther Vandross, it comes back to that same idea. The courage it takes to stay gentle in a world that keeps asking us to harden. What's that? Oh, it's back down to 3,500. Well, you know what? We're going to fix that. We're going to fix that. Okay? I promise you. I am on the job, honey. We're going to fix that. Look, I'm going to threaten all of y'all. Y'all don't get over there. I'm going to stop doing Ask a Bee. Just kidding. She'd probably kick my butt for that. But get over there. Watch her videos. They're amazing. Now, let's see here. If something today stayed with you, you don't have to name it or explain it or even turn it into a takeaway. You can just carry it forward quietly, the way you carry the songs that meet you when you need them most. Ask a Bee will always be a place where stories are allowed to breathe, where complexity is respected, and where being human is enough. Thank you, Nisi. That's wonderful. Hello, Odin. I see you're back. The only thing depressing about knowing the future and how the world ends is that absolutely nobody cares. Well, Odin, I understand where you're coming from, but I can't say I agree. Because I care. I do. So thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you for being or listening the way this kind of conversation asks to be listened to. And wherever you're headed next, I hope you go gently and land softly. Yes, Tracy, I know you care. I know you care. And, Odin, do me a favor, Odin, go look up the goddess Etane. All right. So I am going to go ahead and close this out. I just want to say, guys, I love you. When California goes, Yellowstone goes. So we mine the fault lines at the Salton Sea for lithium and subsidize unregulated electric cars for Elon. Okay. So I'm guessing, Odin, you are just the clowns on the left and the jokers on the right work together to sacrifice Jesus Christ. Okay, Odin, I appreciate you, and we do honor free speech here, but that's not what we're talking about today. So could you keep it, I don't know, tuned into the actual show, maybe? Yeah. Thank you again, guys. I love you. I'm going to check out Tracy. Yay. Thank you, Nisi. Look, my Tracy doll. Y'all get in there. Get in there and watch her stuff. She's amazing, and she's got so many home remedies for you. And oh my gosh, you got to go see her garden. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, I want to live in her backyard. I'll take the doghouse back there. I'll have plenty of food. My favorite part about nature is the birds and the bees because they play the most vital role. Unfortunately, they're under constant attack from the mirrored solar panels or inhumane EMF levels with no regulating and end in sight. I see. So we're going activism today. Do you think Odin was an activist? I'm just curious. Is that what you think? Because no. But I applaud your effort. Thank you. All right, guys. I'm out of here before I have to be out of here. Bye, guys. I love you so much. Odin, thank you for whatever you want to call that. Bye.
How you like that?